Hey book lovers, welcome to In Medias Read. My name is Dawn and today I'm going to be talking about The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. Like I said in my recommendations video, I finished this book pretty much immediately after I got it. It was one of those books that just drew me in. I actually ended up staying up till like 2 in the morning reading it, which for me is definitely the sign of a good book. I'd like to dedicate this video to my friend Adam, who recommended the book to me. Sometimes when you read a book, it fills you with this weird evangelical zeal, and you become convinced that the shattered world will never be put back together unless and until all living people read the book. And then there are books which you can't tell people about. Books so special and rare, and yours, that advertising your affection feels like a betrayal. That quote is from The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, but it's a very good representation for me about the way people feel about books. And in a lot of ways, I tend to feel the second way about books. I develop a really personal and intense relationship with them, and I only share them with people that I really trust, who I think would appreciate the book. And I'm not sure how Adam felt about the book before he recommended it to me, but I feel like it might have been a similar way, just because we have similar tastes and relationships with books. Anyway, moving on to the book itself. Like I said, I loved it. One of the things I really liked, like Amy said, was the way that all of the different parts eventually came together. Because, again, as Amy said, it didn't seem forced. It was kind of quirky and put a twist on the way that you thought things were going to happen, which was really good. But it was also very believable characters with personalities and lives that made sense to come together in the way they did. Some of my favorite parts from the book were the pages where it was just a few words, like when Leo is trying to name his second story, and he begins by typing, "laughing and crying." I studied it for a few minutes. It wasn't right. I added another word. Laughing and crying and writing. Then another. Laughing and crying and writing and waiting. The way those words are put out across the page seems to add a bit of a meaning to it, because as you're reading it, you are doing the waiting that he describes, and it kind of adds an emotional weight or significance to those words in the fact that they come so slowly and added one by one. And I also loved the title that he eventually came up with, Words for Everything, because as people who communicate with each other, that is what we do. We use our words and we count on words for everything in our lives, for communication of ideas and feelings, for really simple things, but also really deep and complex things. So that was kind of amazing. Also, a part where it was just a few words or sentences per page was right at the end, the exchange between Leo and Alma, which was pretty powerful too. The back and forth as things were very slowly coming together. I also just love Alma as a character. I love how her mother says she's named after every character in that book. And it's interesting that we say every character in the book who is named Alma, because we don't know, was it just one Alma who made several appearances? Was it all of these other characters who were then named Alma? It makes me think about how everyone in the world is connected, even in ways we don't know. As a Holocaust book, it was definitely a different take that we don't get very often. Leo and the original Alma were very lucky in that they got out of Europe before anything terrible happened. And that's an aspect that you don't really get very often. It's kind of the people that got away, but it also makes you think of what could have happened to them if they didn't manage to get out in time, if one or two little tiny things had changed. Overall, the entire book really made me think about how where we are today is a culmination of so many little tiny things in our lives that have happened, and how if any of them were changed, we might not be where we are. We would probably still be happy and have productive lives, but they wouldn't be the exact same. They would be somehow different, and it's just a really interesting concept for me to think about and to wrap my head around. So in short, I really loved this book. I hope that you did too. It's definitely going to be a book that I'm going to go and reread, partially for hints, like Amy said, and partially just for the sheer emotional experience of reading it. I almost cried at the end. I think the only reason I didn't was because I was tired and my eyes were dry from reading for so many hours in a row. There's a possibility that I will cry the second time around. But I love when books can get an emotional response out of me like that. It's a sign of really good writing, and I just appreciate that. And I love it. So that's my thoughts on History of Love. I hope to hear from the rest of you very soon. I look forward to what you've got to read, and I'm really looking forward to next month's book as well. So happy reading!